Grandma here, and I am reading Crispin by Avi. And this book has a subtitle, it's called, and it is The Cross of Lead. So we know that the lead cross is very important if it's part of the title. There are other Crispin books, and then they have different subtitles. But I did want to point out to you the title, Crispin, Cross of Lead. To review a little bit, we found out a lot about Bear and how he became what he is. He started out when he was about Crispin's age. His father took him to a monastery, Benedictine, I believe, and he stayed there for a number of years, 6, 7, 8 years. And one day he was out in a village and he saw some mummers, and they were all laughing and having a great time, which was not quite what happened in the monastery. And he decided to abandon the monastery and to join this jolly crew of people. He did that for a while, and then people died, people got married, people ran away, and he then became a soldier. Eventually, though, he returned to being a mummer. And a mummer is a street entertainer, basically. And you put money in a cup or a hat, and that's the money that they earn from their entertainment. So after Bear told Crispin all about himself, he said, "Well, now, tell me more about you." So Crispin didn't have much to say, other than his mother and father had died. But that's how we begin this chapter, chapter 24. By then I had slipped so easily into talking, I simply told him what had happened, as much as I could recall. When I had done, he asked, "And they proclaimed you a wolf's head for that?" Now, do you recall the crime he was supposed to have committed? Well, he was supposed to have committed the crime of stealing from the manor. The steward, Aylward, had declared him a wolf's head, meaning he was no different than a mouse or a caterpillar or anything. Anybody could kill him. I nodded. "To be a wolf's head is to say you're no longer human, so anyone may kill you," he grinned. "Even me. But," he went on seriously, "your priest told you to flee." "Yes. And since your steward tried to kill you, your priest was proved right." After a moment I said, "And they killed Father Quinnell." Bear said, upright, "Killed the priest?" he cried. "In the name of Jesus, why?" "I don't know. But when he told me I had to leave, he also promised he'd tell me something of importance just before I left. Instead, he was slain." "Have you any idea what he was about to say?" "Oh, something about my father and mother, so I think his death was my doing. God was punishing me." "By killing his priest? It's a thing I've noticed," the big man said, laughing with laughing scorn, "that the greater a man's or boy's ignorance of the world, the more certain he is that he sits in the center of the world." I hung my head. "Crispin," he said after a moment of silence, "I'll give you some advice. You're full of sadness. Those who bring remorse are shunned. Do you know why?" I shook my head. "Because sorrow is the common fate of man. Who then would want more? But wit and laughter, Crispin, why, no one has ever enough. When I think on the perfections of our Savior, I choose to think most upon his most perfect laughter. It must have been the kind that made us laugh too. For mirth is the coin that brings a welcome. Lose your sorrows and you'll find your freedom." I remember that word, freedom, as one that Father Quinnell used. After a moment I said, "But you gave me no choice but to stay with you." His eyes flashed with anger, enough so that I regretted I had spoken, but then, as happened so often, he laughed. "Crispin, do you know why my hat is split into 2 parts?" "No." "Like all men with a skill, I wear the livery of my trade. For me, the 2-part hat informs the world there's more than a simple nature reading in my soul. That's bad and good." All right, now I'm going to pause here a second and take you back to the beginning of the book where there was a photo. And in that photo, you can see Bear with his hat that has 2 points. And you can see he's juggling. And then in front of him is a boy with what looks like a recorder. So let's read on and see if we know what that picture is all about. "For I am only bad," I thought to myself, wishing yet again I knew what sin was embedded in me to have brought God's hand so hard upon me. "Crispin," said Bear, "a wise man," he was a jester by trade, "once told me that living by answers is a form of death. It's only questions that keep you living. What think you of that?" "I don't know," I said. "Well, think on it, for we shall soon be passing out of this zone of desolation. From here on, as God is good, many living villages shall appear. They'll be small, but if we labor well, we can survive. You and I. Will you join me? I give you the freedom to choose." "You're my master," I said. "I have no choice." "Crispin, decide," he barked. I shook my head. "It's not for me to do so." "Should not every man be master of himself?" he asked. "You made me call you master." His face grew redder than it normally was. "You're a willful fool," he bellowed, clearly frustrated. He poked the fire. "You'll go." "As you command," I said. He frowned, but only said, "Before we get there, you'll need to learn some things." "What?" "Time enough for that tomorrow. Go to sleep." Without further ado, he lay down. From the pouch around my neck, I took out my cross of lead and upon my knees prepared to pray. "What are you doing?" I heard him ask. I looked over my shoulder. "Praying." "What's that in your hand?" "A cross of lead. It was my mother's," I said, holding it out for him to see. "It even has writing on it." "Writing or not, it's useless," he said, waving my hand away. "No more than a trinket." "What do you mean?" I cried, fearing he was slipping back into madness. "All these things, your cross, your prayers, as God is near, and surely he always is, you need no special words or objects to approach him." "But this cross," I began. He cut me off. "I know what it is. It's made of lead, made in countless numbers during the Great Death. Never blessed. They were given to the dying for false comfort. They're as common as the leaves and just as sacred. Crispin, as Jesus is my witness, churches, priests, they're all unneeded. The only cross you need is the one in your heart." Greatly shocked, I didn't know what to say. "But," he added with a hard edge of anger, "if you so much as speak my words in public, do you know what would happen to you?" "No." "You'd be burned alive, so don't repeat them. And if you said I spoke them, I'll denounce you for a liar and a heretic. So put your cross away. I don't wish to see it again. Keep your faith to yourself." Though unsettled by his words, I turned away and made my prayers, the cross in my hands. I prayed to St. Giles and asked him to remember my father, whom I'd never seen, my mother, whom I missed so deeply, and last of all, myself. I also promised him I'd not believe the things Bear had said. Though Bear must have heard me, he did not interfere. When I was done, I said, "Bear, I'm sorry I know so little. Well, sometimes it's better not to know. How can that be? Ah, Crispin, if I've learned one thing, it's that he who knows a bit of everything knows nothing. He who knows a little bit well knows much of all. He said no more and was soon asleep, grunting like a pig. The fire had collapsed into a heap of smoldering coals. The night being cold, I drew closer to it and tried to make sense of the things that Bear had said. He had confused me. First, he said it was better to live by questions. Then he said it was a mistake to know everything. I struggled to put the two notions together, but could not. What I did know was that he was unlike any man I had ever known. There was madness in him, to be sure, yet I could not deny some kindness. But what vexed me most was his saying that every man should be a master of himself. If I knew anything, it was that all men belonged to someone. Surely God himself put us all in our places, lords to rule and fight, clergy to pray. All the rest, like me, were on earth to labor, to serve our masters and our God. Otherwise, it was much to say stars could go their own way instead of being fixed to turn around our world. Bear had to be wrong. Yet I found myself thinking it was not so bad to have fallen in with him. To be sure, he was a rough and ready man. The things he said confused me. Even his calling me by name, Crispin, was unsettling. Still, if Bear fed me and protected me, I might at least survive a while. In any case, I had little choice. God had willed it. And yet, thinking on what he said, I asked myself, if I were to live by questions, what questions would they be? About my father? And those things Father Quinnell had said about my mother, if they be true or not? And maybe, I allowed, I'd ask what was to be my fate. Chapter 25. When I woke in the morning, I had spent so much time with Bear's strange ideas, I was in a cross mood, not wishing to deal with him. Nonetheless, he informed me that it was time to begin teaching me some skills. He explained how, upon entering a town, he played and danced, headed straight for the village church. There I pray, hopefully at a mass. I said, I thought you didn't believe in such things. What I think, Crispin, stays in my head. What I do is there for all the world to see. I must show reverence. I don't understand you, I burst out, surprising even myself. You tell me I don't need a church. Then you talk like a priest. What are you? A man, nothing more or less. And you? Nothing. Why do you insist on that? Because I have no name, I said, my rage bursting forth. No home, no kin, no place in this world. I'm a wolf's head. Any and all may kill me when they choose, even you. You say you want me to do things, think things, but when I won't be able to, you'll shun me and betray me like the rest. I had never said so many words in one breath in all my life. When I'd done, I turned away, alarmed that I had spoken to my master in such a fashion. Crispin, in the name of all the blessed saints, have you ever desired to be anything different from what you are? We must be content to be as God made us, I said. What if God wishes you to better yourself? Then he will do so. Crispin, he said, grabbing me by the neck and hauling me along, come with me. He dragged me to a little stream where we had fetched our water. Have you seen what you look like? He said. A little by our river, but I don't like to. Gaze upon yourself, he said. Puzzled I did as he bid. Staring at my image in the flowing water, my long hair, my dirty, bruised, and tear-streaked face, my red-rimmed eyes. Now then, he commanded, Wash your face, using sand to scrub it. Go on, or by God, I'll do it for you. After I did as he told, he picked up his dagger. What are you going to do? I cried. Cut your hair. Now, look at yourself again, he said when he was done. What do you see now? I considered my reflection anew. Are you different? He said. A little, I said. And that was only water and a blade. Think what you might become if you were cleansed of 13 years of dirt, neglect, and servitude. I turned back to my image and gazed. It was different. For a moment, I allowed myself to wonder what it would be like to alter the rest of myself as well. As I was trying to tell you, Bear said, interrupting my thoughts, when I reach a village, I apply to the priest or to the local lord or bailiff. The reeve, if necessary, anyone in authority from whom I can get permission to perform. And you wish me to go with you? I asked. Of course. But Bear, I said, what if I'm recognized? Crispin, you are altered. Who would recognize you now? Anyone from Stromford. By the certainty of St. Paul, they are gone. They'll never bother you again. But what if they do? First, you say you are nothing. Then you say half the world is looking for you. Make up your mind if you have one. But Bear, I said, the steward tried to kill me twice. And when I was hiding in the woods, he came along the road. I'm sure he was searching for me. He looked at me slyly. You know, for an insignificant creature, you're very vain. Give me one reason they're concerned. They think I'm a thief. Crispin, did you steal? As God is my witness, no. Then it's all a sham. You were only being blamed for what someone else did. But it's they who matter, not me. Then I shall make you matter, he said. I'll teach you music. I won't be able to learn, I said. Do the birds sing? He asked. Yes, I said. Do they have souls? I don't think so, I said, somewhat confused. Then surely you can sing, no less than they, for you have a soul. Sometimes I think I have none. For once, Bear was speechless. In the name of Saint Remigius, why? I've never felt it. Bear gazed at me in silence. Then we, he said gruffly, shall need to make you do. This next section talks about a recorder. How many of you have played a recorder? It's almost a rite of passage for children in their 10, 11, 12 years old. And the interesting thing is, recorders have been played for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And this story takes place 650 years ago. And let's see if there's any difference in learning how to play a recorder now from learning how to play a recorder then. He began by instructing me about the pipe's holes, the stops he called them, and the way to shape my mouth around the blowing end, how to shift my fingers, how to make different sounds. Reluctantly, I took up the recorder and with fingers like soft clay tried to play. What came out were sorry, shallow squeaks. You see, I said, I can't do it. I offered him back his pipe. Refusing, he railed at the top of his voice, threatened to inflict upon me every kind of grisly torture if I didn't try. At first, his shouted warnings terrified me. But as the day wore on, I realized he was mostly bluster. While I didn't doubt he could have done those ghastly acts he threatened, it was but a rough kindness. The more I realized this, the less tense I began. Gradually, I found my way with tongue, fingers, and breath. Before the day was half done, I managed to pipe out a simple song. There, you've done it, he cried out when first I did. Tell me that you didn't hear it too. No one was more amazed than me. To think that I, with my breath, could make a song thrilled me deeply. I wanted to play it over and over again. Bear only made me work harder. Then as I played, he began to strike his drum as to keep the proper beats. It was mid-afternoon, and I was playing when something different happened. Before my astonished eyes, this enormous man jumped up and began to dance, holding his large hands up, pumping his knees high, prancing his great red beard flapping, his two-pointed head bobbing this way and that, the hat bells jingling. He was like one possessed. Though a giant, he appeared as light as a goose feather in a swelling breeze. I was so taken aback at the sight, I stopped playing. "Now you know why I took you on," he said with a grin. It took a moment for me to fully grasp his meaning. He wanted me to help him. "Play, fool," he yelled. "That's the point of it all." Excited, I resumed, continuing to make music while he paused to scoop up his leather balls, for now as he danced, he also juggled. Then to all of this he added singing. "Lady Fortune is friend and foe, a poor she makes rich and rich poor also, turns misery to prosperity and wellness into woe. So let no man trust this lady who turns her wheel ever so." Finally he stopped. Panting, he thumped me on the back and said, "There, Crispin, my young and foolish soulless saint, you see what we shall do. While I perform my revels, you shall pipe the tune. I promise it shall bring us pennies of plenty, and we, the bear and the cub, shall prosper greatly." His words made me grin. At this, Bear thrust his hand aloft. "Oh, God," he cried, "look upon thy miraculous gift. This wretched boy has given the world a smile." That night, as we made ready to sleep, Bear informed me that on the following day we would reach a village by the name of Burley. "It's only 2 leagues from where we are, and an easy walk," he said, "and on the main road to Great Wexley." Bear's news about the morrow made me very nervous. Since I had left Stromford, the only person I'd been with was him, but I said nothing. He would, I fear, only mock my worries. Instead, when Bear was asleep, I went upon my knees and with my lead cross in hands prayed. "Blessed St. Giles," I whispered to the cross, "let me play the music well. Let me be a credit to my master, and I beg thee, let me have a soul, that I too may sing and dance like Bear. And St. Giles, do not let me do not let him betray me." Well, that's the end of chapter 26. It's sounding like it's going to be a fun adventure when they get to the new village with Bear dancing and juggling and Crispin playing the recorder. Anyway, see you later. Bye-bye.